Ladies and gentlemen, in a world obsessed with surface-level beauty, we often fail to notice the quiet signs of deeper attractiveness that radiate from within. There are those among us who do not see their own reflection clearly, not because the mirror lies, but because the eyes they look through are clouded with doubt. Yet, attractiveness is not merely the alignment of features. It is a manifestation of the soul's harmony with itself. Today we explore 12 quiet, almost mystical signs that you are more attractive than you believe, signs that arise not from vanity, but from authenticity. When people stare at you without realizing it, it often signals something far deeper than superficial curiosity. Their gaze lingers not out of rudeness or scrutiny, but because something about you quietly captivates them. These are not the overt stares of judgment or evaluation, but the subtle, unconscious fixations that people themselves may not fully understand. They look and they keep looking, not because you're demanding attention, but because their attention is naturally drawn. This is not always about physical beauty in the traditional sense. It's about presence. There is something in you, a quiet magnetism, a peculiar energy, a certain stillness, that holds them there. Even in a crowded room, your presence might stir a ripple in the awareness of others. Their eyes might find you and rest on you, again and again, without them being able to articulate why. There is a kind of silent communication happening in these moments. Eyes often reveal what words cannot. When someone stares without conscious intent, they are responding to something archetypal in you, something resonant, something familiar yet extraordinary. They might not realize they're doing it. They might look away quickly when you meet their gaze, but the moment has already spoken. You have stirred something in them, not with performance or effort, but with the natural expression of who you are. What makes this kind of gaze different is its quality. It's not the gaze of hunger or conquest. It is the gaze of curiosity mixed with a strange kind of longing. They may not know whether they want to understand you or simply be near you. And often you won't notice it yourself unless you're paying close attention. You may be used to it. You may have spent your life thinking, "Why do people keep looking at me?" Without understanding the unspoken truth, people stare at what they find compelling. We look at beauty, yes, but we also look at mystery, at depth, at things that don't immediately make sense but feel important to understand. You might be someone who quietly carries complexity, something in your eyes, your posture, your way of listening. It might be a softness others rarely encounter, or a kind of inner light that radiates even when you speak no words, and this draws them in. The fascinating thing about being stared at in this unconscious way is that it does not require you to perform. In fact, the more at ease you are with yourself, the more magnetic this becomes. When you walk into a room, you might sense eyes following you not because you're loud or extravagant, but because you exude something calm, unbothered, whole. Perhaps it is the way you walk without haste, or the way you hold space without needing to dominate it. Perhaps it's your stillness, or the tension between what you express and what you withhold. This kind of attention is not always flattering. Sometimes it can feel invasive or confusing, but it is a sign that you carry something others want to understand, emulate, or simply be near. There are moments when someone will glance at you and for a second seem caught off guard, not because of what you're wearing or how you've styled yourself, but because something in your being reminds them of a dream they once had, or a person they once loved, or a version of themselves they forgot existed. You become, without trying, a mirror or a muse, and while you might not recognize this as attractiveness, it is the essence of it. The world responds to more than just what we show. It responds to what we are, especially when we are unaware of how much we are already being seen. When strangers feel comfortable around you, it's often not because of anything you say or do consciously, but because of an unseen field you carry within yourself. There's something in your presence that feels safe to others, like a quiet room after a storm or the scent of something familiar but long forgotten. People are drawn to you not in a loud or chaotic way, but in a manner that suggests their guard begins to lower simply because you are there. You might notice that strangers begin speaking to you in grocery store lines, that people on buses or at cafes strike up conversations without preamble, and that others seem to smile at you more easily than they do with others. And these small, almost unnoticeable interactions are not coincidences. They are indicators of a subtle and rare attractiveness, the kind that comes from a spirit at ease with itself. The human psyche recognizes equilibrium when it encounters it. If you hold a kind of inner balance, even in the face of your own challenges, others sense this as a source of strength and peace. It's not about appearing perfect or being endlessly cheerful. It's about the emotional signals you send, even when silent. People feel they can rest near you, that they do not need to pretend, that in your company, they are not being watched through a lens of judgment. This quality is magnetic, not in the sense of immediate passion, but in the way that others unconsciously gravitate toward you without fully knowing why. The comfort they feel is not necessarily about your words, but about your energy, the softness in your facial expressions, the way you listen without needing to interrupt, the way your body does not brace with tension, but remains open to what is. In many ways, it is your lack of performance that makes people trust you. You are not trying to impress or manipulate. You are not navigating social settings with a need to dominate or persuade. You are simply present, and in that grounded presence, others find a reflection of something they long for in themselves. They may not consciously think, "This person is attractive," but they will feel better after being near you. They will leave conversations with you feeling more like themselves, feeling somehow lighter, as if something in them had been acknowledged without ever needing to be explained. That is a rare form of beauty, and it is powerful, even if it remains unnoticed by the one who carries it. Often, those who exude this type of comfort have lived through some form of suffering. They've touched the depths of their own complexity and have come out not hardened but softened. There's a humility in them, a recognition of the silent battles others might be fighting, a patience that doesn't rush people toward transformation, but allows them space to exist exactly as they are. Strangers pick up on this without ever being told. It might be in the way you make eye contact, steady but not invasive. It might be in the way your silence makes room for others to speak without fear of being misunderstood. There's an emotional intelligence you carry that doesn't need to announce itself, one that allows people to unfold instead of shrink. This kind of attractiveness does not light up a room with flair, but it warms it slowly like sunlight passing through curtains. It's the kind that builds trust in seconds, that makes people tell you stories they haven't told anyone else, that makes them return to you with questions, with hopes, with their unpolished selves in hand. And while you may have grown so used to this pattern that you no longer question it, it is a reflection of the way your internal world reaches out and quietly rearranges the emotional furniture of those who pass through your presence without ever needing to ask for it. When people remember you long after a brief encounter, it is not always because of what you said or did, but because of how you made them feel, and this emotional imprint is often more enduring than the most eloquent words or dramatic gestures. You may have crossed paths with someone for only a moment, perhaps during a casual interaction at work, a fleeting conversation at a social gathering, or even a chance meeting in a waiting room, yet somehow you linger in their memory like a familiar song that returns unbidden weeks later. They recall your name when others are forgotten. They bring up the things you shared even if they seemed unimportant at the time, and they speak of you to others in ways that suggest a lasting resonance. This is not the result of rehearsed charm or deliberate influence, but a reflection of something within you that resonates on a deeper, more archetypal level, something that transcends the immediate and touches the symbolic. To be remembered in this way is to be seen, not just for your appearance or words, but for your essence. There is something about your energy, your way of being, that feels significant to others even if they cannot explain why. It may be the way you hold eye contact, not in a way that challenges or claims space, but in a way that affirms presence. It might be your ability to listen in a way that feels rare, not distracted or performative, but attentive and attuned. When someone speaks and truly feels heard, they remember not just the exchange but the person who allowed them that experience. This is a kind of attractiveness that is not loud or showy, but it is enduring and in many ways more powerful because it doesn't rely on external validation to be real. There are moments when people remember your gestures, your tone, your subtle expressions, and carry them with them because you represented something to them, whether comfort, clarity, mystery, or meaning. Sometimes, the reason you are remembered is because you showed a side of yourself that gave others permission to be more themselves. You became a momentary mirror, reflecting back their unspoken emotions or unacknowledged truths, and in that mirroring, something within them shifted. They may not consciously link this feeling to you, but your image, your name, your voice stays with them, emerging unexpectedly in dreams, in reflections, in future moments of choice or change. The psyche retains symbols that touch it deeply. You may have symbolized something for someone, a sense of possibility, a kind of peace, a spark of something they felt missing in their own lives. And when that happens, you are woven into their narrative without even trying. They might say, "There was something about you," and be unable to define it, but what they are really describing is a recognition of the archetypal qualities you expressed, those invisible threads that link one soul to another across time and space. This is not about being impressive, it is about being real, about having aligned your outer expression with your inner self so closely that people feel something sacred in your presence without needing to name it. Being unforgettable is not about standing in the spotlight. Often, it is about presence without performance, connection without calculation. You may find that people reach out to you years after you've met, saying they've thought of you, that they remembered something you said, or that something reminded them of you and they felt the urge to reconnect. These are not coincidences but echoes, the psychological reverberations of an encounter that mattered, even if it was brief, even if it seemed small at the time. And this is the essence of a deep and quiet kind of attractiveness, the ability to stay in someone's mind not through force, but through resonance when people begin to open up to you, often without knowing why, when they confess things they haven't said out loud before, or reveal aspects of themselves they usually keep hidden. This is not merely about your ability to listen, but something deeper and more quietly powerful. There is something in your presence that disarms people, something that tells them, without words, that they are safe from judgment, that they are being held in a space where vulnerability is not only allowed, but quietly welcomed. This phenomenon is often so subtle that even you might not recognize its significance, brushing it off as just another conversation or another moment of openness. But what is happening is far more meaningful than it appears on the surface. People don't reveal themselves to just anyone, and when they do so spontaneously, it's rarely accidental. The human psyche is cautious, shaped by wounds, memories, and the masks we are taught to wear in the world. When someone chooses to set that aside with you, even temporarily, it means they are sensing something rare in you, something that resonates with a part of themselves they usually keep protected. They are not responding to what you say, necessarily, but to who you are beneath what you say, to the atmosphere you create simply by being present. This kind of emotional magnetism cannot be manufactured. It comes from a particular alignment within you, a depth, a softness, a kind of open stillness that allows others to stop performing and simply be. You might notice how conversations with you often veer into deep territory, how someone who only just met you begins to speak of heartbreak, of family pain, of childhood memories, of dreams they've never pursued. You may find yourself being entrusted with secrets, drawn into emotional landscapes you did not ask to enter, because something in you signals to others that you will not exploit, ridicule, or betray what is shared. This kind of trust is not a surface-level social skill. It's a signal your entire being sends out. Your eyes, your tone, your silences, even your stillness. All of these tell a person that you are not here to harm or to take, but to hold space, to witness without interfering often. The people who inspire these kinds of confessions have walked through their own shadows. There is something in your quiet understanding, in your unspoken acceptance of pain, that gives others permission to stop pretending they are fine. People recognize, even unconsciously, that you have sat with your own brokenness and that you don't fear theirs. You don't flinch at emotional intensity or depth. You don't rush to fill silences or offer platitudes. You allow space for truth, even if it is uncomfortable or raw, and this is one of the most magnetic qualities a person can possess. This form of attractiveness doesn't draw people in because of how you look or how you dress or how charming your smile is. It draws people in because they feel, even without understanding why, that something inside them will be seen and accepted rather than corrected or fixed. They may leave a conversation with you feeling lighter, not because you solved their problems, but because they were finally able to let their guard down. In a world where most people wear emotional armor, to meet someone who doesn't require it is a rare and disarming experience. Even more telling is when people feel inexplicably emotional around you, when their voice cracks as they speak, when they pause and say, "I don't know why I'm telling you all this," or "I haven't said this to anyone before," as if surprised by their own openness. That surprise is a recognition of what you unconsciously offer, a container, a sanctuary, a moment where truth feels safe enough to be spoken out loud. It's not something you do, it's something you are, and it's one of the clearest signs of a deep, authentic attractiveness that transcends surface perception and touches the hidden, most human parts of those around you. When children and animals are naturally drawn to you, it reveals something profound about the energy you carry, because unlike adults who are conditioned by social rules, politeness, and the complexities of language and pretense, children and animals respond purely to what they feel, to the tone beneath the words, to the atmosphere a person brings into a space. And if you find that dogs wag their tails when you walk by, that cats approach you even when they are known to be selective, or that children seem fascinated by you, want to sit near you, look at you with wide, trusting eyes, it is because they are sensing a softness, a safety, a kind of harmony within you that calls to them without needing explanation or effort. There is something about the innocence of these beings that makes their response incredibly honest, and when they come to you with ease, it means that at your core you are carrying an essence that is non-threatening, peaceful, and quietly open. And this energy, though subtle, is a rare form of attractiveness that is not about appearance or charm, but about purity of presence, a kind of undisturbed frequency that resonates below the noise of adult perception. You may not notice it right away. You might simply think it's a coincidence. When a baby in a stroller locks eyes with you and smiles, or when a dog stops pulling on its leash just to sit at your feet, or when a toddler leaves their parent's side to come stand next to you without a word. But these are all signs that your aura, your unconscious emotional field, is giving off a sense of peace and trustworthiness that living creatures who operate on instinct can feel immediately. And this means more than most people realize, because it shows that your attractiveness lies not in what you try to be, but in who you are when you're simply existing. This unconscious resonance can't be faked or forced, because children and animals do not respond to masks or affectations. They react to authenticity, to groundedness, to the invisible warmth that radiates from people who are not caught in the game of appearances. And when they come close to you, lean into your space, or relax in your presence, it suggests that your internal world is not only calm but inviting, and that your soul carries a frequency of safety and kindness that speaks louder than any words or gestures ever could. What's most striking is how consistent this reaction can be across time and context. Even when you yourself are not in a particularly expressive mood, because this type of connection isn't dependent on what you're doing, it's about what you're being, and that beingness, that rare state of quiet openness, is deeply attractive in a way that defies logic, often leaving others puzzled by how naturally creatures trust you, how even shy animals or cautious children seem to let down their guards when you are near. It may stem from the fact that you don't seek to control or dominate, that you don't push your energy outward aggressively, but instead allow others to come to you, to approach in their own time, and in that gentle restraint, in that quiet willingness to just be available without pressure, lies an almost magnetic quality that the most instinct-driven beings can sense immediately, and they are drawn not to your words or actions, but to the stillness beneath them. The kind of stillness that holds life without squeezing it, that accepts without needing to analyze or rearrange what is present. And if this is a pattern in your life, if you've often wondered why even the most restless child seems to settle in your lap, or why animals you've never met seem to treat you as if you belong to them, then consider the possibility that you are radiating a form of beauty that is not visible to the eye but deeply felt by the heart. A beauty that is not about decoration or design but about essence, one that offers a rare sense of refuge in a world that is often too loud, too fast, and too disconnected from the purity that beings without words still remember and reach toward. When people begin to mimic your movements, your speech patterns, or even your expressions without realizing it, they are not consciously copying you, but rather responding to a subtle and powerful psychological force. And this phenomenon, known as mirroring, occurs when someone feels a deep resonance with another person, when their subconscious registers a connection or attraction that goes beyond surface interaction. And if you find that others often adjust their posture to match yours, use similar phrases, or adopt your tone shortly after speaking with you, this is not only a sign of rapport, but a reflection of the influence your presence has on the emotional and energetic environment around you. This kind of unconscious imitation is rarely acknowledged because it happens below the level of deliberate behavior, and yet it is one of the clearest signs that your presence has entered someone's internal world in a meaningful way, that they are aligning themselves with you, not because they are trying to impress you, but because their psyche has registered something familiar, something admirable, or something soothing in the way you carry yourself. And so it begins to echo it in small, nearly invisible ways that speak louder than words ever could. You may notice it in conversation when someone starts to lean forward when you do, or crosses their legs just after you've done the same, or laughs in a rhythm that mirrors yours. And though it may seem insignificant, this is the body's way of saying, "I feel safe here," or "I want to be closer to this energy." And that desire to connect, to harmonize, to fall into rhythm with another, is a mark of attractiveness that does not rely on external beauty, but on internal coherence, because people are drawn not only to what is beautiful, but to what is congruent. And when you are at peace with yourself, when your words match your energy, when your movements arise from a centered place, others feel that, and their own bodies begin to adapt and respond. This phenomenon is not limited to those who know you well. Even strangers can fall into this subtle dance of mirroring when they encounter someone whose presence invites connection, and you may find it happens during first meetings, during casual exchanges, during moments when you're not even trying to connect, but are simply being yourself. And that's what makes it such a powerful indicator of attractiveness. It happens when you're not performing, Not reaching, but simply living in alignment with yourself in a way that others want to emulate without understanding why there is something deeply psychological at play here. Something rooted in the way we instinctively connect with others we admire, trust, or feel drawn to, and the fact that people subconsciously begin to imitate you means that they are attuning themselves to your emotional frequency, trying on your presence to see how it feels in their own skin. And this kind of energetic mimicry is not about manipulation or power, but about intimacy, about the invisible invitation you extend just by being real. And when someone accepts that invitation, even through unconscious mimicry, they are telling you, in the quietest of ways, that you have impacted them. You might also notice that this mirroring happens more often when you are most grounded, most honest, most relaxed. Because authenticity has a way of making others drop their masks and soften into who they really are. And when you become a mirror for someone else's truth, they begin to reflect parts of you in their behavior, not because they are losing themselves, but because they are finding something in you that feels like home, like clarity, like the version of themselves they have been seeking or suppressing. And if this keeps happening, if people begin echoing your energy, your language, your mood, you are witnessing the effect of a subtle charisma, the kind that does not command a room but transforms it slowly, not by demanding attention, but by creating a rhythm that others instinctively want to move in sync with. Because there is something beautiful about a person who doesn't chase connection, but whose presence makes others lean in, soften, and mirror a truth they didn't know they were. Looking for true attractiveness whispers rather than shouts. It is not found in perfection, but in presence, in how the soul inhabits the body, how the unseen manifests in the seen. Many of us walk unaware of the light we carry, having been taught to look for it in the wrong places. But the signs are there, in the way the world responds, in the silences that speak, in the small moments when the universe leans a little closer. So, if you recognized even a few of these signs in yourself, perhaps it's time to believe what others already feel, that your attractiveness is not a mask, but a mirror of something real, rooted, and radiant. Thank you.